Welcome to Easy Sleep, where calm begins, and your journey to restful sleep starts now. Before the story begins, we're going to complete a few exercises to help improve your sleep. When I give the signal, close your left nostril with your left finger and inhale through the right. Are you ready? Let's begin. In. 1, 2, exhale. 1, 2, 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 in. 1, 2, exhale. 1, 2. Okay, now let's switch to the other side. Are you ready? Let's begin. In. 1, 2, exhale. 1, 2, 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 in. 1, 2, exhale. 1, 2. Okay, now stop blocking your nostrils and breathe along with me. Are you ready? Let's begin. In. 1, 2, exhale. 1, 2, 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 in. 1, 2, exhale. 1, 2. You can now return to your natural state of breathing. We're going to move on to some visualizations. Picture yourself in a peaceful, calm environment, surrounded by love and warmth. Now visualize yourself slipping into a deep, peaceful sleep. You feel completely safe and at ease. Feel yourself sinking deeper into comfort with each breath. As you settle deeper into this peaceful feeling, repeat after me. Tonight, I will have the best sleep of my entire life. My body is healing and my mind is at peace. I will wake up feeling refreshed and rejuvenated. Thanks for joining me tonight and participating in trying to improve your sleep.
Tonight's story is titled The Dream Drawer. Let's begin. The sea breathed like a sleeping giant, and Leia Malu listened. It was just past dusk, and the world outside her open windows had settled into its gentle night rhythm. The hush of wind through hibiscus trees, the soft creak of bamboo chimes, the faint shush of waves smoothing the shore beyond her garden. Inside her cottage, light spilled in buttery pools from 2 paper lanterns. One glowed over her writing desk. The other beside her bed held back the corners of the dark like a gentle hand. Leia moved barefoot across the woven mat, a teacup warming both her palms. A delicate fragrance of toasted rice and jasmine floated upward. She paused by the window, leaned slightly out, and watched the moon catch on the water like a smooth pebble in motionless glass. Her room was quiet and small, but it held the kind of comfort that doesn't try to impress. A quilt, slightly sun-faded, rested neatly across the bed. Stacks of worn books leaned like sleepy friends along the walls. A seashell sat on her nightstand, placed not for decoration, but because it had once whistled softly in her pocket when she was lonely. And next to her bed, beneath the low sill of the window, was the drawer. It was carved from koa wood, soft at the corners, with a simple curved pull and no lock. Her tutu wahine had given it to her when she was just old enough to understand what it meant to wish for things you couldn't name. "This is for the dreams you don't say out loud," her grandmother had whispered, tapping the top of the drawer with her warm, weathered finger. "You write them down. You let them sleep in here. Let the island take them. If they're true, they'll find you again." Leia never asked how it worked. The drawer didn't glow or whisper. It didn't open itself or shuffle the slips of paper when her back was turned. It was just wood and memory and ritual, and she loved it. She set her cup gently on the nightstand. Then, from a small ceramic dish beside the drawer, she took a folded piece of paper and her pen. The ink was soft brown, nearly faded from years of use. Her handwriting was simple, rounded letters, no loops or flourishes. She paused with the pen tip hovering, waiting. Today had been uneventful. She had swept the shop floors, arranged the new journals by color and thickness, watched a cat stroll past the window 3 separate times like it was checking in on her. Not bad days, but not loud days. The kind of day that simply was. She wrote, "I want to feel like I'm part of something, even if it's small." She stared at the words a moment longer than usual. Then she folded the paper in half, then in half again, and slipped it into the drawer. The wood gave a soft, familiar sound as she closed it. Snick. Like a sigh, she climbed into bed, the sheets cool against her legs, and pulled the quilt over her shoulders. Through the slatted shutters, moonlight spilled in soft lines across the ceiling. A gecko chirped somewhere near the kitchen. Leia turned her head toward the drawer. "Good night," she whispered, as if the dreams inside could hear her. And from somewhere beneath her skin, or maybe just below the edge of hearing, the world whispered something back. Morning on the island arrived with a hush, not a fanfare. Sunlight slipped through Leia's shutters in soft golden ribbons. The sounds of the day began gradually. First, the distant coo of doves, then the rustle of palm leaves stirred by the ocean breeze, and finally, the soft whir of the neighbor's porch fan as it turned for the first time. Leia sat cross-legged on her lanai, a bowl of fresh mango slices beside her, her tea cooling in her hands. She watched a honey creeper hop from rail to rail, its red feathers like a spot of fire among the pale driftwood tones. She hadn't written a new dream yet. Sometimes she waited until night, when the day had finished revealing what it was meant to be. Other times, the dream came early, like a whisper you caught before fully waking, but today felt quiet. She finished her tea, fed the remaining mango to a particularly bold Mina bird that had become a regular visitor, and stepped into her soft sandals, her bag already hung near the door, inside it, the little paper envelope that held her folded dream slips. Blank and waiting, the shop sat on the curve of a narrow street, shaded by banyan trees, that stitched the sky together with their thick branches. Above the door hung a small wooden sign, painted with hibiscus and shell shapes. In faded letters it read, Namea Pakole, Little Things. Leia had never changed the name after taking over. It had been her grandmother's, and before that, her grandmother's sister's. The shop was barely more than a single open room, shelves and wooden crates filled with hand-bound notebooks, tiny jars of sea glass, postcards painted with watercolors, and bowls of smooth black lava pebbles that people liked to rub between their fingers. Leia opened the windows and let the salty air sweep in. The wind stirred the wind chimes near the front, making a sound like a faraway lullaby. She set about her morning tasks, wiping down the counters, watering the succulents that clung to their little ceramic homes, placing a bowl of flower cuttings by the guest book. As always, she lit the gardenia candle. The scent was soft and grounding, like remembering a good dream. Mid-morning came and went. A few regulars stopped in, an elderly man looking for a birthday card for his daughter, a local artist dropping off new shell earrings, a sunburnt tourist who just wanted to browse and touch everything with slow fingers. Leia offered a quiet smile, a helpful hand, but mostly stayed back, letting the space do the talking. Then a woman walked in, middle-aged, unfamiliar, with a wide hat and sun-streaked hair. She looked around once, twice, then walked slowly to the shelf where Leia had just arranged the new notebooks. These, she said, picking one up with careful hands, are exactly what I didn't know I needed. Leia tilted her head slightly. They're made by a woman on the North Shore. She collects old maps and lines the inside covers. The woman opened one. Inside, a bit of sea chart curled across the page, dotted with hand-lettered calligraphy. She smiled. I've been off lately, you know? Her eyes met Leia's. But something about this place, it feels kind. Leia felt the words catch in her throat. Her instinct was to wave it off. Instead, she said simply, I'm glad. The woman nodded once and held the notebook to her chest. You made my day. Leia stood still as the woman walked to the counter and paid, thanked her again, and left with the notebook pressed like a secret to her heart. She didn't move for a moment. The drawer at home had her words from the night before. I want to feel like I'm part of something, even if it's small. A breeze stirred through the window. The wind chimes gave a single clear note. The trade winds were stronger than usual that afternoon, brushing through the trees like they had secrets to share. Leaves rustled like whispers, and plumeria, blossoms dropped lazily from branches, decorating the sidewalk without a sound. Leia was walking home the long way, a habit she'd picked up after noticing how much beauty was hidden on the side streets. Ferns growing wild along stone walls, bursts of hibiscus peeking from fences, hand-painted signs that said things like, Aloha lives here, and be kind, always. She liked quiet routes. They gave her mind room to stretch. Her canvas bag bumped against her hip as she walked. Inside, a mango, a jar of flower honey, and a folded blank dream slip she hadn't yet written on. She sometimes carried one with her, just in case a thought arrived mid-step. As she reached the curve near the post office, a gust caught her by surprise. Her hair whipped into her face, and she instinctively reached up with one hand to hold it back, but not before something lighter than air lifted from her bag and fluttered away. The blank note. No, wait, she said aloud, though no one was around. The paper spun like a leaf, then glided across the narrow street and landed against a gate, one of those short white picket fences, bordering a quiet yard filled with birds of paradise. She hurried toward it, the wind already teasing it loose again. Just as she reached out, a hand beat her to it. It was Nico, the mailman, dressed in his usual navy shorts and short-sleeved shirt, a satchel slung across his chest. He grinned, holding the note between his fingers like it was something delicate. I believe this belongs to the breeze, he said, then offered it to her. Leia took it with both hands, smiling despite herself. I didn't even write anything on it yet. Maybe that's why it flew off, Nico said. It wanted a head start. She looked at him more closely. He had soft eyes, and the corners crinkled in a kind way when he smiled. His tan was uneven, darker on his arms and legs, and a small pencil stuck out behind one ear. You always walk this way? He asked. Only when I want to hear myself think. He nodded, then tilted his head. That's a good reason. I like to listen to my mail sometimes. You'd be surprised how many letters make sounds. She gave a small laugh. What kind of sounds? Bills groan, love letters hum, postcards from Italy have a little yawn. Leia didn't answer, just smiled. She hadn't expected a conversation. Most days, she barely spoke more than a few words to anyone. Well, Nico said, stepping back toward the sidewalk. Better keep walking before the wind steals more secrets. See you around, Miss, Leia. Leia? He repeated it like he was making a note in his mind. Nice name. Then he tipped an imaginary hat and walked off, the breeze tugging gently at his satchel as he disappeared around the bend. That night, as she prepared for bed, Leia couldn't stop thinking about the moment. It had been so small, just a note, caught in the wind, a short conversation with someone who probably talked to dozens of people each day. And yet, she took a clean slip from the dish, sat it on the edge of her bed, and this time didn't hesitate. I hope someone sees me and remembers me kindly. She folded the paper, slid it into the drawer, and felt the familiar weight of it settling into place. The drawer closed with a gentle click. Outside her window, the wind had stilled, but the air felt changed just slightly, like the pause after someone says your name in a crowd. Sunday mornings smelled like wet soil and warm fruit. Leia loved the early hours at the farmer's market before the crowd arrived and the sun grew too insistent. The vendors were still arranging their tables, placing handwritten price signs beside baskets of guava and dragon fruit, while children tugged sleepy parents from stall to stall. She always visited the same flower vendor first. Alohi's booth was easy to spot, draped in sheer yellow fabric and dotted with palm leaf fans, with bundles of tropical blooms rising from woven baskets like small fireworks. Plumeria, ginger, tie leaves, sunbirds. Flowers she'd known the names of since she was little, and others she still asked about each time. Leia stepped into the shade of the booth, and there she was, Alohi herself, standing barefoot on a worn rug, already stringing a lei between her fingers, her hair tied in a thick braid streaked with silver. Well, if it isn't my silent orchid, Alohi said, not looking up. You came early today. Leia smiled, wanted to beat the rush. Alohi slid another flower onto the string and gave her a look from under her brow. No rush yet, unless you're running from something. Leia shrugged, a little embarrassed. Just clearing my head. The older woman's fingers didn't stop moving. Good air for it today. The ocean was talking all night. Leia looked over the flowers, letting her fingers hover above a tray of creamy white pikake blooms. Their scent was rich and almost dizzying. You want your usual? Alohi asked, reaching toward a cluster of peach-colored anthuriums. But before Leia could answer, Alohi paused, studying her with the same thoughtful quiet she gave to her flowers. No, she said, not today. She moved behind the stall and returned with a bundle already tied with palm string. Without explaining, she held it out. Leia blinked. I didn't tell you what I needed. You didn't have to. Leia took the bouquet, surprised by how perfectly it felt in her hands. Ginger for courage, pikake for hope, crown flower for transformation. She didn't need a guide to know what they meant. Her tutu had taught her long ago. You've been putting your heart somewhere, Alohi said, adjusting a bloom that had slipped out of place. I don't know where, but it's growing. Leia looked down at the bouquet, unsure what to say. Her fingers tightened slightly on the palm string. I've been writing dreams, she admitted, the words sounding delicate as she spoke them aloud, at night into a drawer. Alohi tilted her head, as if that made perfect sense. Dreams are like flowers, she said. They don't all bloom at once, and some you plant for other people. Leia swallowed. It's just something my grandmother used to tell me. I don't know if it really works. It's not about working. Alohi handed her a single puakenikeni bloom, buttery gold and glowing at the edges. It's about watering. Leia tucked it behind her ear. The scent was immediate and sweet, and something deep in her chest felt soothed. You'll see, Alohi said, folding her arms and nodding as though the conversation was finished. Now go before I make you help me string lace. I can see you've got a new dream forming. Leia smiled, a quiet laugh slipping out. Thank you. As she walked away, the flowers cradled in her arms, she felt lighter. Not like someone who had been given something, but like someone who had just remembered something they already knew. That evening, after setting the bouquet in a small ceramic pitcher by her window, she sat cross-legged on her bed, lit the gardenia candle, and reached for a slip of paper. I want to believe that small things matter. She folded it gently and placed it in the drawer. For a moment, the room felt full. Not crowded, but full. Like it had gathered around her. Like someone was listening. The rain arrived without warning. Not a downpour, just a soft, steady mist. The kind that shimmered in the air and left everything damp but not drenched. Leia had just closed the shop for the afternoon. Sundays were always shorter, and with the market crowd thinning and the street nearly empty, it felt like the day itself was ready for a nap. She stepped outside, with her woven bag tucked under one arm, the scent of rain-soaked pavement rising to meet her. As she turned the corner toward home, something caught her eye on the sidewalk ahead. A small object, pale and delicate, sat just at the edge of a puddle. She crouched and picked it up carefully. It was a tiny paper boat, folded neatly, with a slip of blue thread tied around the middle. Inside the hollow center, a tightly rolled piece of paper peeked out. Leia hesitated. Then she gently tugged the thread loose and unrolled the note. I want to be brave enough to talk to grown-ups. The words were written in pencil, the letters a little uneven, like someone had erased and rewritten them a few times. There was no name, no address, just the paper boat, the note, and the feeling of something fragile offered up to the world. Leia stood, turning to look around. The street was still. Then she saw him. A small boy stood half hidden behind the corner of a low stone wall across the road. Barefoot, shorts damp from the mist, hair sticking in soft curls to his forehead. He had one hand behind his back and the other clenched nervously at his side. He was watching her. Leia smiled softly. Did you make this? She asked, lifting the little boat so he could see. He ducked behind the wall. Then, after a long pause, peeked out again and gave the smallest nod. She took a slow step toward him. It's very well folded. I used to make boats like this with my tutu. His eyes widened slightly at the word, but he still didn't speak. Leia knelt and set the boat gently on the edge of the puddle between them. "Do you want it back?" she asked. The boy looked at her, uncertain. Then he shook his head. "It's yours now," he whispered. Leia smiled again. "Thank you. I'll keep it safe." He stepped out from behind the wall, just a little. She could see now that his shirt had a faded sea turtle print and that his knees were smudged with dirt. He couldn't have been older than 8. "I'm Kai," he said, so quickly it nearly vanished into the air. "I'm Leia." He nodded as if he already knew. Then he pointed at her bag. "Do you write them too?" he asked. "The notes?" Leia blinked. "You've seen me?" "Through the window. You light a candle. You fold the paper small, like origami, but with words." She felt her cheeks warm. Kai looked down. "I didn't know if I could do it right. I thought maybe I should try it your way." Leia reached into her bag and pulled out a clean slip of her own. She folded it in half, then again, and held it out to him. "You can try as many ways as you like," she said. He took it with both hands, like it was a gift, stared at it for a moment, then gave a small, serious nod. "I think maybe I have another dream." "I'd like to read it someday," Leia said. Kai didn't answer, but when she turned to walk home, she felt his eyes follow her, and not in the uncertain way of before. This time, it felt like something had opened. That night, after placing Kai's boat on her windowsill, she wrote a note of her own. "I want him to find his voice." She held it for a moment longer than usual. Then, slowly, she slid it into the drawer. The wind picked up outside. The chimes rang once, and then, like someone brushing their fingers across her shoulder, the breeze moved through the room and was gone. That night, something changed. Leia had been slow to settle, her thoughts drifting between the boat on her windowsill and Kai's quiet voice. The air was warmer than usual, thick with the scent of rain-soaked blossoms and gardenia from her candle, which flickered low beside the bed. She sat cross-legged on the quilt, her notebook open beside her, but untouched. She hadn't written a dream yet. For the first time in many nights, she wasn't sure what to ask for. She looked at the drawer. It sat quietly in its usual place beneath the window. Nothing about it had ever changed. Same worn wood, same smooth pull, same quiet snick when it closed. But tonight it seemed different, as if the air around it held its breath. Leia stood and moved toward it slowly. The floor creaked once under her step. She reached for the ceramic dish, took one last slip of paper, and wrote without overthinking, "I want to know if something is listening." The words came out softer than she expected, as though her hand had known before her heart did. She folded the paper gently, once, twice, and slid it into the drawer. The moment the wood closed with its usual click, a faint golden light blinked beneath the edges of the drawer. Leia stepped back. It wasn't bright, not like a lamp or the moon, more like a glow that had always been there, but had just chosen to reveal itself. It pulsed once, warm and honey-soft, then slowly faded, like a breath exhaled. Leia stared. Her chest rose, held, then slowly fell. She said nothing. There was nothing to say. But she left the candle burning longer than usual. She sat beside the drawer and watched it in the flickering light, listening to the soft symphony of night sounds outside. Geckos chirping, waves whispering, a soft wind moving through plumeria trees, like fingertips through hair. She finally climbed into bed and pulled the quilt to her chin, her eyes never fully leaving the drawer. The next morning, everything looked the same. The drawer was just wood. The sun was bright through the shutters, the birds loud and familiar. But at the shop, the world arrived differently. A man came in, quiet and sunburned, with a limp in one leg. He asked if she had any postcards with ocean scenes. She offered several, but he chose the plainest one, just a watercolor of a single wave, mid-crest. He stared at it for a long time, then looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. "My wife would have loved this," he said. Leia didn't know what to say, so she didn't. She just smiled softly, wrapped it in craft paper, and gave it to him without charging. He took it like it was sacred. Later, 2 teenage girls wandered in. One picked up a journal and said, "This place smells like when I was little." Then they both bought matching pens and left with bright faces. An hour later, a young woman stepped through the door, her hands full of plumeria blooms. "I don't know why," she said, "but I felt like I should bring these here." Leia took them gently, heart fluttering. The rest of the day passed like a gentle song, and when the sun dipped low, Leia closed the shop and walked home in silence. That evening, after placing the plumeria in a bowl beside her bed, she knelt by the drawer again. She didn't write a note. Instead, she simply rested her hand on the top and whispered, "I saw it." The wood beneath her hand felt warm, like it remembered. The next morning, Leia woke with a new thought in her heart, not a wish for herself, but a hope for someone else. It had arrived quietly, like dew on the grass, soft and certain. She didn't question it. She simply made tea, placed 3 plumeria blossoms on the windowsill beside Kai's paper boat, and folded a slip of paper with steady fingers. "I hope he finds the words he wants to say." She didn't need to write his name. The drawer would know. Later that day, she sat outside the shop beneath the awning, a small basket of bookmarks in her lap. The air was still heavy with warmth. Children rode past on bikes, their laughter sharp and bright, and the breeze smelled faintly of roasted sweetbread from the bakery down the road. Kai appeared just before midday, walking hesitantly toward her. He wore the same sea turtle shirt as before, but this time it looked freshly washed. His curls were combed. He had a folded paper tucked into his palm. Leia smiled and gave him space. He stood before her in silence for a long moment. Then slowly he held out the paper. She took it gently, unfolding the note. The writing was small and neat. "I want to draw something that matters." Leia looked up. "That's a beautiful dream." Kai kicked lightly at the ground with one bare foot. "Do you think it's silly?" "Not at all." He fidgeted for a second more, then suddenly blurted out, I draw stuff all the time, but I never show anyone. I think it's only good in my head. But then I saw your drawer, and I thought maybe it's okay to want things even if they're small, even if nobody sees them yet. Leia placed the note gently in her pocket. She leaned forward slightly, the breeze lifting her hair. I think the drawer listens even more closely when it's not just for us, she said, and I think your drawings are already starting to matter. They mattered to you. That's the first spark. Kai looked down again, but smiled. You talk nice, he said. Leia laughed softly, surprised. Kai reached into his other pocket and pulled out a small shell. This is for your dreams. She took it reverently, as if he were handing her a star. Thank you. Then he looked at the window display, where she'd arranged some watercolor postcards beneath glass jars of sea glass. He pointed at the blank wall beside them. Can I bring you one next week? He asked. A drawing for the window? Leia nodded, heart full. Yes, she said. Please do. Kai grinned, a real full smile, and walked off down the street, his bare feet slapping lightly against the pavement. That night, Leia placed his note and the shell in the drawer together. She closed it slowly, her fingers resting on the wood a beat longer than usual. The room felt warm again, not from the candle, but from something quieter, deeper. A presence that lingered when the light went out. The island was quieter than usual that week, not in a lonely way, just softened, as if everything had dropped into the same calm rhythm Leia was learning to live in. Birds still sang, ocean waves still reached for the shore, but there was a hush between sounds that felt almost sacred. Leia spent her evenings the same way, candle lit, tea in hand, the drawer by the window, waiting with patient breath. But something had changed. She no longer wrote her dreams with the same sense of longing. The ache was still there, but softer now, woven through with a thread of trust. The drawer was fuller too. She hadn't meant to count, but she noticed one night that the slips of paper were no longer lying flat. They rested at soft angles, curled from age and salt air, as if they'd stretched in their sleep. That morning, as she opened the shop, she paused at the front table, the one near the window, where the sun cast warm rectangles of light across the wood. Without quite knowing why, she placed a small ceramic bowl there. No label, no sign, just the bowl, empty. She returned to her usual tasks, watering the succulents, arranging the bookmarks, brushing the sand from the windowsills. But when she passed the table again, something stopped her. Inside the bowl, a single folded slip of paper. She glanced toward the street, but no one was there. The air was still. She unfolded the note. I wish I could speak more kindly to myself. Leia stood very still, the words lingering like the echo of a song. She didn't know who had written it. She didn't need to. The next day, there were 2 slips. By the end of the week, there were 6. They arrived in different handwriting, some slanted, some blocky, some with drawings or stickers, but all folded carefully and placed in the bowl with reverence. Leia never asked who they were from. She never opened them unless the drawer itself felt quiet and still enough to receive them. One evening, she found a note tied with twine for the drawer from a stranger who finally forgave herself. That night, Leia lit the candle early. She sat beside the drawer, surrounded by unopened notes, like blossoms in the bowl, and chose just one to place inside. Then, without writing a new one of her own, she folded her hands and simply whispered, "Thank you." The drawer hummed faintly beneath her palm. Not light, not sound, just a feeling. A glow that wrapped around her ribs and settled in her chest like warmth after rain. She didn't need to know what happened to the notes once they entered the drawer. That wasn't the point. The point was this: something was listening. Something was holding them. And it was enough. The sun dipped low behind the water, and the sky turned the color of guava flesh, pink with soft golden edges. Leia walked home slowly, the breeze carrying the scent of salt and pikake through the narrow streets. In her woven bag were 3 folded notes from the shop's bowl, a small tin of dried hibiscus tea, and a sketch drawn by Kai. A girl sitting beside a drawer with stars spilling out like fireflies. He had handed it to her that morning without a word, grinning as he pointed to the window display, where she'd placed it beside a bowl of shells. That afternoon, Nico had stopped by to leave a poem scrawled on the back of a stamped envelope. "For the drawer," he said, smiling with one shoulder raised. Like he couldn't help it, it sort of wrote itself. Inside the shop, there were now nearly 20 folded dreams in the bowl, and Leia had started leaving blank slips tucked into the covers of notebooks, under flower vases, between postcards, tiny invitations left like offerings. And tonight, for the first time, the drawer would be full. As she entered her cottage, the wooden floor creaked in its usual rhythm. The gardenia candle flickered gently to life. The drawer waited beneath the open window, haloed by the golden dusk. Leia knelt beside it, the wind lifting a curl of her hair as she placed the last few slips inside. She didn't pause. She didn't hesitate. Every motion felt as natural as breath. When the drawer closed, the faint golden light returned. Not bright, not dazzling, just warm, steady, like something deeply alive. She sat cross-legged on the bed, watching the moon rise. The room was quiet, filled with the pulse of soft things, tea cooling in its cup, waves combing the shore, the sound of her own heart unhurried. She reached for one final slip of paper. Her hand didn't shake. She didn't need to search for the right words. She wrote one word slowly, with care. "Thank you." She folded it once, then again, then slid it into the drawer, nestled among dozens of others. Her own, Kai's, Nico's, Alohi's, strangers, all together, all held. The drawer clicked shut with the softest sound. Leia climbed into bed and turned toward the window. The stars above were blinking, scattered across the sky, like notes waiting to be read. She whispered to the drawer one last time, "I believe now." And then she closed her eyes. Outside, the wind moved gently through the plumeria trees. The drawer glowed once more, then faded, resting at last in silence. It was full, but not finished, just full.